Hi, everybody. I'm back. What? Here's my next guest. This is Adrianna. Adrianna is an amazing soul. Let me tell you just a bit about her, but I'm going to let her finish by wrapping up way more because we were walking to, once again, the favorite spot, Body, Mind, Soul Tree. And I said, oh my God, you just need to finish telling it because it's so colorful and gorgeous, just like her. I met her at a local coffee shop and we instantly connected. You're in your 20s.
Yeah, 25.
25, but an old soul. So she is born and raised in Texas and highly creative, self-taught musician. And you take the rest of it because I want you to say it.
So I grew up in Corsicana, very small town. Ended up moving around, getting to my spot. I started playing guitar around 14. I turned 25 recently, so it's been a while.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. I've always known I wanted to do something musically, and wasn't very good. But I didn't stop, and so eventually that paid off. Progress definitely worked out for me. I paint a lot. I like to make jewelry, just anything creative. I try to do things that will help me in a craft sense. I think as the future moves on, we'll start to see things change and people will start trading. That's one of my favorite things about this current time is not too long ago, I traded somebody a painting and a really neat string art astrology thing to have my hair done. And so trading
that's right.
for services.
How freaking cool is that? Oh, I love that language,
and
astrology.
Just trying to bring that up in our community as like we see money become kind of a feeble thing, these little paper notes that, don't really hold a lot of inherent value other than the dreams that we attach them to. We can trade for material goods and things that we can offer other people, and just kind of enjoying the time, trying to stay level-headed, learn some skills.
Girl, you have skill. You don't need to learn. You have them. You are amazing. So there you have it, Adrianna. Oh my God, you're so articulate, and I already knew this, but that in and of itself was like a gorgeous painting. What you just said.
Thank you.
And she's so humble.
Oh man.
Wow.
Have you seen them around? They're like little wasps. They're kind of like black and blue. I've been trying to figure out because they don't look like hornets, but
they don't look like hornets.
Or
They don't look
bees.
like murder hornets or bees or whatever. But they're kind of.
They're
what is a
interesting.
murder hornet? Isn't that so funny?
Yeah, right. I've actually never seen one. A murder hornet.
So stupid.
Yeah. So I've still been working during the pandemic. We wear masks, obviously, and wash our hands vigorously. So that's been interesting. It's been a time.
Yeah, so we were talking about that on our walk going up the trail. I really would like to hear from you because I was just telling her last night I sucked it up because we have to eat, right? So I go into the grocery store with a mask on, but half of it is off. I had to break half of the strap because every once in a while I need to kind of take a breath, and I'm one of those people. I get claustrophobic and I get anxiety. Mm-hmm. I like the feeling of air going in my lungs. So Adrianna, what were you telling me earlier? You've got to share this again.
So I was just sharing how at the beginning I had a similar experience. I used to work outside at an outdoor restaurant. Right now I'm just working at the coffee shop, and in the beginning I noticed I got a lot of migraines and I was having trouble breathing. I'd come home with heavy migraines, and that's not something that's normal to me. I never get headaches. I don't take pain reliever for headaches or anything like that. So it was very apparent when I'd get these sharp pains in my brain, and it was always right after work. And I'd have to drink lots of water, and I would have to take pain reliever to make it stop. It hurt so bad. And so, my first thought is, well, I'm not getting as much oxygen as I typically would be, because there's a filter. And so, and another thing is, like, they're finding microfibers of plastics inside of our bodies. And not just from the mask. This has been a thing from our clothes and different things like that.
Sure.
And a lot of the disposable masks are made out of a microfiber plastic. So I wonder if we're inhaling that as well. I don't know. It's just a question, just a thought,
A great question.
But, so I looked it up on the internet when trying to decide if I wanted to go back to my outdoor restaurant job, which is requiring masks. And we're in Texas. It's 100 degrees outside.
Right.
On top of having a filter blocking your airflow and trapping in your carbon monoxide that you're breathing out. And I opened every article on the first 2 pages of Google. This was a couple months back. And all of them looked identical. And I found that really interesting. And all of them just said, in a very blanket statement, that high-level researchers have said that these masks do not cause oxygen deprivation. And so I would open another one, and it had the same number of paragraphs. It said the same exact thing. I just thought that was funny, because we haven't been wearing masks for very long, so how would they know how it affects us? And I could only find the same result over and over and over again. And no differing points of view. All the articles were identical. And that was a couple months ago, so I thought that was interesting. And some guy at the gym yesterday told me that he read an article about a fellow who was wearing his mask while driving, and this guy tells me, well, the masks take away 40% of your oxygen, and this guy, I guess, passed out from not getting enough oxygen and drove straight into a pole. I did not see it for myself, but I thought that was interesting to finally hear that from somebody else, like mentioning that this oxygen deprivation is a thing. I definitely notice it myself, but the internet will tell you it's not real. So
you should always trust the internet. Do you find that that's kind of symbolic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about oxygen deprivation. Do you find, so hello, Google, CIA, Zuckerberg, blah, 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 Gates, let's just word vomit, blah, and get that out of our system.
Yeah.
So fascinating. You did your research, and you kept digging and digging and digging. We all know when you research, you can research from a biased perspective.
Well, see, and
Adrianna, it doesn't sound like you were doing that.
No, I just wanted to know, and it just kept telling me that was not a thing. But I have a hard time understanding how there is such profound knowledge on a fact for something that has, at the time I looked it up maybe in April or May, so that, masks weren't even fully enforced all the time. So how do we know how these affect humans? How were there researching, how was there studies going on?
How was that information already propped up? Propaganda.
It's almost and so if you get on Craigslist and look at jobs, you'll see tons of little posts that get paid to write articles. And my mom had done it a couple of times, and she told me, she spent forever writing on this article and then sent it to them, and they pretty much just chopped and screwed the whole thing, which is what they do. Right. And it blows my mind that people think that the internet is unbiased when you get paid to write something and then it gets edited to fit a narrative, so that way they can put advertisements on it. It's not this, wholly unbiased, gospel of truth. I just have the hardest time understanding how people, I don't know, it's almost like the new Bible. The internet is the new Bible,
Girl, I just got chills again. This is why we instantly connected. Come on, soul sister. Okay. Thank goodness for people like you. Wide awake, is she not? And so graceful. I cannot stop saying that. So as the words flow out of your mouth, let's go closer to the stream. Okay. Because I love the sound of that. The water is so healing. So yes, I think you're right. It's all rigged, everything. And it is becoming like this new Bible. So let's go there. Are you spiritual? Are you religious?
I'm spiritual. I was raised Roman Catholic. My grandma is a Wiccan, so I had that dichotomy to deal with growing up.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Yeah. So I'd go to my grandma's and we'd talk about magic, and then I'd go to my dad's and we'd talk about hell. So yeah, it was pretty.
Oh my god! I cannot stop getting the chills. This is crazy.
Yeah. So I had, to do a lot of searching. When I was about 14, 15, I went to a private Christian school. I got really into the Gnostic Gospels, into the Nag Hammadi, all the books that were taken out of the Bible, that really have a more open-minded point of view. They represent Jesus in a bit more of a human type way. Anyone who's an Orthodox Christian will tell you these books are heresy or whatever, but if you follow the history of them, you'll see that the monks who guarded these books often treated them with the same regard as they do the current Bible. And so that's kind of where I expanded my horizons, and I've just had, a couple of experiences on my own where I speak to spirit and it speaks to me. So yeah, definitely more on the spiritual end, that's for sure. Not religious. I like to worship through music.
Yes.
My guitar playing and my singing, that's often like how I worship. My painting as well. Painting isn't really for me. I do it kind of as like a duty. It's actually really frustrating to me if I'm not just doing it in flow. When I try to enforce an image myself from my human, I have a very hard time. But if I just do it like I'm putting on an outfit and going to church, and I just decide this is what I'm doing with my time, it's kind of like my duty and my practice. I feel like I've been gifted with certain visions that it's my job to transpose, and so that's kind of what painting is to me.
Do you love her yet? You should. If you don't, click off, because I don't want to know you. Oh my God. Literally everything you say is like a painting in and of itself.
Thank
you. You really are like surprising me, but I already felt this about you, but you are really, like, my heart is so warm and fuzzy right now. This is a gorgeous example of a sovereign being right here. I also grew up Roman Catholic.
Really?
Yes, I did. And I was anemic, and I didn't know it. But so the rule was no eating before receiving communion, right? Because your body needs to be pure. Your temple needs to be pure. Well, I would pass out in church. And the very first time it happened, I'm not even kidding, I woke up to several of the parishioners throwing holy water on me and praying over me. And I was so pale white, and all I could say was, "Can I please have bacon and eggs?" I was so hungry and weak. And I was 7. And then
God, that's wild.
Yeah.
Finish and
okay, so stand, sit, kneel, pray. Plus we wore these cute little long polyester dresses that my precious grandmother would sew for us. So it was really hot and uncomfortable. But yeah, and that proceeded to happen a few more times. Then I started noticing throughout the year, we started eating breakfast. Like, my grandma was like, okay. I started noticing when they would say the monotone sounding kind of prayer, the Lord's Prayer, whatever, which I will still say, but
yeah, me too.
The resonance of that in the church and it echoing throughout would make me feel very uneasy for some reason, and I couldn't understand it. And I think it was because, and then of course I questioned confession with my grandma, because I was like, I mean, aren't we all God's children? Can I just talk to him myself? Because I had just learned the word shit, and I taught it to my siblings, and I was petrified. Yeah, so I was trying to get out of confession, and I didn't have to go. But the whole point is, even at 7 and 8, I felt something was off. Like, my soul was like, I'd really rather do this by myself, even though I think community is important. So what was it that just got your attention when I said that?
So when I was 7, it took a while, but I would get kind of confused and lost at school. And it was always like right after my mom dropped me off. And
wow, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's this goofy little thing, it took forever to figure out what was wrong with me, but I'm a reactive hypoglycemic, so my body doesn't Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So my body does not process sugar. When I have it, it disrupts everything. But it took a long time because you don't really know how to elaborate that as a 7-year-old.
Right.
So I would just be in school and start crying and tell my mom something's wrong, but I don't know what's wrong. And like, I'd obviously been going to school 2 years before, so it's not like I just had this, fear of school, but I couldn't tell her what was wrong. And we had to go to 3 different doctors. The first one said nothing was wrong with me. The second one put a heart monitor on me and said that something was wrong with my heart, and because my heart rate would increase. And eventually we found out that I had 2 bridges in my heart. Each bridge carries a beat, so mine beats double.
Oh.
So it's actually not anxiety. It just, my heart typically beats that fast.
Wow.
And so then that wasn't wrong with me. So then we went to Children's, and then he found out I had, reactive hypoglycemia. But that happened at 7 too, so I thought that was interesting. And like, bacon and eggs are often a thing. Like, whenever my blood sugar is crashing, my husband will make me some eggs, and that always brings me back to life. And it's like instant too. It's
My
wild.
goodness. Wow. So yeah, reactive hypoglycemia, that was something I learned about way later in life, but at first it was anemia. So I find now I'm going to just go on a different path here. We'll go there with something else, because so awakened children, unbeknownst to themselves and all of the adults around them. So you find out these things later.
Yeah.
They just keep adding up and adding up and adding up. When was it that you finally said, I'm not crazy, I'm one with everything? You said spirit.
Yeah. I was probably 19. Probably 19. Like, I'd always known a little bit inherently, but I'd never seen it unfold for myself and in my life
19.
until I was 19. And that's whenever I had this firm knowing within myself that I could have a direct communication with spirit. And I think everybody inherently does. There's always that aspect of your consciousness. I like to think of humans as the most, tangible display of a multiverse. Melody has her own universe in her head, and I have mine in mine. And we can kind of share a parallel with each other and share this dimension, but I will never be able to hear her thoughts or feel her experience, and she'll never be able to hear or feel mine. We can only try and transmit them to each other. And so for me, spirit is the aspect of you that is with you when you're alone. Loneliness has a negative connotation, but to me it's got this holiness in it. Because there's always that aspect of you, that I don't know really how to explain it.
I think you're doing an eloquent job, as usual.
Thank you.
The bird agrees. I think that's a hawk, actually.
Do you? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, there's one that is close to, I think it is too, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had an experience like last week maybe, and we'd gone by this little creek in the apartment complex that me and my husband live in, and we'd seen a hawk hanging out at a park across the street, and he swooped down and like sat on a specific tree. The stork used to sit there. He's not a stork, he's a heron, but I like to call him a stork.
I know,
'cause he's
yeah.
all white. But he used to hang out at that tree, and this hawk came down and flew, and we like locked eyes, enough for me to take a video of it for like 10
Oh, you
seconds.
got it on video.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and then he flew down in front of me. Quarantine's made me very privy to the birds and nature and just everything that, is out here, and very much so alive. It's really, I don't know, neat how much all of these things work together. My husband's been talking a lot lately about how we have this image of nature, the whole nature versus nurture, and like this dominance game, survival of the fittest. But, what we don't talk enough about is how that's not the only way that things interact. Symbiosis is a thing as well, and oftentimes that tends to be more beneficial. And so whenever different species can form relationships symbiotically, those can be more sustainable than like just one thing dominating and destroying something else.
Again, if you don't love her, go away. I cannot believe you are just like a walking ethereal fairy of encyclopedic knowledge on a spiritual level.
Thanks. I feel like I've been alive for a very long time.
I feel like you've been alive many times, and this time is maybe your last go round, and then you get to ascend, not even to 40, but like you just go all the way up there.
That'd be cool.
That'd be cool, wouldn't it?
That'd be real cool.
Oh,
the stories are that I came into this earth screaming and crying, and I kept everybody awake for a very long time. And my grandma will always say that it's because I knew that I had a very big job here, and that there's going to be a lot of pain in that journey.
Oh, wow.
And that I knew that inherently coming in, which I agree with, for sure.
Wow.
I definitely agree with.
Wow, you guys. And that was the Wiccan grandmother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so nature is so symbiotic. And I'm actually drinking lemon water with rose petals in it.
Oh, nice.
In case you're wondering, why is she like chomping after she takes a drink? That's why. Let me back up really quick. I'm going to put my water bottle down. What about the, you were saying about the symbiosis of nature, and I've noticed a lot with the birds too. In fact, I mentioned when all this first came out with the pandemic, if you ask me, that the birds are still singing and nature is calling for us, and maybe they're trying to tell us there's a financial smokescreen at play.
I could see that. Have you noticed how they're getting more comfortable? A big one for me has been the squirrels. The squirrels have been very comfortable. And so I think a lot of that has to do with the decrease in noise pollution.
Yes.
Because that's kind of what signals to them that there's something that could kill them. And so with less cars being on the road, I've started to notice like just in a mass of squirrels, just not even noticing or caring that I'm around.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
And bunnies too. I've seen bunnies like everywhere. The deer have been coming up by the apartment complex, by people's buildings.
Yes.
That's been really neat for sure.
Nature is very, very much comfortable. I've noticed that too. God, the fact that you just brought that up, and even the birds. So they're coming close. And it's almost like they're saying things to us, right? Like the hawk and the heron. Sounds like a good book.
Yeah, it does. The hawk and the heron. I like it. It's kind of like Toad and Frog.
What's Toad and Frog?
Do you not know Toad and Frog?
No, should
I?
I?
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. When I was in elementary school, it was like a little book series we would read. I'll send you like a little snippet of it or something.
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, it was really cute. Really cute. You know, something I was talking about yesterday is, you know, the coronavirus is not going anywhere. And to me, what the parallel I see is, I remember when I was little, one of my aunts had gotten pneumonia. And I remember everyone in my family saying, you know, well, you could die from pneumonia. You could die, you know, if you're weak, then it could kill you. You know, and I've seen a video of a 97-year-old walking out of the hospital recovered from coronavirus. So clearly the virus itself does not kill you. If you are weak, it can kill you. And I'm not trying to be insensitive to the lives that have been lost. If you have people who are in fragile states, you know, then definitely be careful and don't risk them. But at the same time, I think it's going to be our modern day pneumonia, which we haven't had something like that, you know, in a while. And so are we going to, you know, if the flu gets even worse, are we going to shut the economy down? You know, and that's another thing is, why is nobody talking about immunity? You never see on these White House talks, and I watched a lot of them, nobody talks about immunity. Nobody talks about the vitamin D deficiency. I think like 70% of Americans have a vitamin D deficiency. If you're staying inside all the time, you're not getting vitamin D, and your immunity is going to go down, and you're also lessening your intake of bacteria to be able to keep your immune system doing what it does, keep it working. It's kind of like a muscle, I would assume. You typically interact with bacteria. I'm not saying you should go and be dirty, but
I say you should go play with the dirt.
There's a really neat farmer who was talking to Joe Rogan, and he like told everybody to like go and play in the cow shit. Whenever this whole thing came out, he was like, go and get dirty. Like, you need that bacteria. That all of that's going to build your immunity.
Yes.
And, you know, of course, like nowadays, everyone's obsessed with Clorox wipes. So
I don't know. I don't own them. I do use lemon oil and thyme oil.
Yeah.
And tea tree oil.
But, you know, and even before this, there's kind of like common knowledge that the overly clean parents who would clean all the bacteria off of everything with these really intense chemicals, their children would develop autoimmune diseases because their immune systems aren't doing what they typically do, which is building resistance to dirt and dirty things. So if they don't build that resistance, their immune systems won't work. And so, like, why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we talking about eating healthier or getting exercise or getting sun and things that could help you, you know, survive the coronavirus?
Or anything.
Yeah, or anything.
I have, really quickly, I had a gorgeous coworker, oh my God, Iranian, gorgeous. And she said her husband and her little girl have OCD. And her little girl was always getting sick. And this coworker of mine would call me Dr. Melody because I was always redirecting her toward holistic, naturopathic things. And eventually I said, you need to get a dog. And they finally got a dog. They finally got a dog, and I'm so excited. And everyone looks so happy and healthy. And I've not heard of any, you know, sicknesses, and they're doing their little nature outings and whatnot. So, God, you just have so much information. I'm so ecstatic. And now the espresso is kicking in, so I've got to focus.
Nice.
I have to focus. So let me see here. You're right. Vitamin D deficiency. Really quickly, I don't know if you agree with this, but I'm just going to say it. The shit they spray in the skies. It's kind of suspect. Let's come over here.
So I watched an article. No, I watched a video recently. It might have been a documentary that was like factually talking about that. It's actually common knowledge now.
Sure.
Which is funny because like a lot of these conspiracy theorists, which was actually, did you know that the term conspiracy theory was coined by the CIA?
CIA, yes ma'am.
Yeah. So
and speaking of getting into other people's thoughts, that's a CIA thing.
Really?
You and I may not be able to, but like they've been experimenting with that for a very long time. Many creepy things.
Like, you know, and so MK Ultra was a thing, so I don't understand why people don't. I mean, obviously, like, you shouldn't believe something just because, but many of these things have unfolded to be, I don't know, recognized as accurate by a multitude of people.
Yeah.
That's definitely a thing. You know, our government did take people and kidnap them and give them psychedelics and keep them trapped in these little confines and run experiments on them for mind control. If you've seen Stranger Things, if you actually put the subtitles on, you'll recognize that that's what that series is about. It's actually about MK Ultra, which is something that's verified, and it's in the release documents. And that's the thing that blows my mind is people want to, you know, act like somebody's crazy for mentioning it. But if you look at the released documents from our government, you can find them in the public domain. Like it's all in the public domain. If you want to know, the thing is I don't want to use such a definitive language. I feel like a lot of people don't want to know.
Because there's safety in that. There's safety in that, and there is a thing that happens when you start becoming awakened. It can be really scary.
Oh,
and
definitely.
A lot of
It's
people
terrifying.
are in a comfort zone, and they don't want to believe. They just want to get up and do their thing.
There's no responsibility. You know, if you're doing what you're told, then the responsibility belongs to whoever told you what to do.
Oh my God!
You know,
Bless America and Adrianna and the whole world and heaven. Wow.
I mean, that's where I see a lot of the issue lie is, you know, if you make decisions for yourself, then you are to blame. And so I feel like a lot of people do what they're told because they don't have the blame. You know, they don't have that responsibility to carry within them. You know, it's always, well, I was just doing what I was told, you know.
Wow. Sovereign being, you are. Yoda language for you. Okay. Oh my God. Girlfriend. This is why we instantly connected when she served me my double espresso. Support local business, by the way. Don't forget that. Oh, have we noticed how corporations are still running full steam ahead, but the local businesses are being shut down? You know, there's something really, really, really wrong. And a long time ago, or like maybe 5 years ago, someone posted on Facebook something about history and said, things have never been perfect. History it's all bad.
Yeah.
But your perception is your reality, but we do have to look at whatever we call reality. So historically speaking, I really am fascinated by the Wiccan grandmother, because I also recently made a post about something historical the other day on Facebook, and it was based on an NPR interview I had heard of a girl in Hong Kong. And she was talking about how everyone is trying to find a way out of there, how they've been oppressed for so long, and she specifically cited the 50 years, and how they're, you know, he asked, do you regret the protesting? Do you feel like it made a difference? And she said, we don't regret it. At least we want to show people that we care, that we did it, that it meant something. But in my heart, I was like, that's so bittersweet, because we should be doing that. We should be speaking up for ourselves, taking personal responsibility and accountability. And then I thought, but you get in trouble for it, right? And I thought, going way, way, way back, some holistic person, you know, who has a bunch of herbs, and others go, she's a witch, and she's being burned at the stake.
A witch means a woman with power.
Well, then call me a witch.
Historically. I found a neat book on it that was talking about taking that word back, but you typically see like an old woman over a cauldron mixing up some kind of potion, but it was women with power without the necessity for men, you know. So a woman who could be independent and strong in her own sense, and so you deem her a witch because she's of no use to you because you can't use her.
That sounds like spiritual warfare too. I have actually been told I am a white witch and a green witch because I love stirring healing foods in my cauldron from my heart. So going back to what I said, these holistic type women were burned at the stake, right? And I was ranting a bit, and I was like, motherfucker, in a future life, I'm going to be a naturopathic doctor who saves your grandmother from cancer. But it's getting really hot up here. Oh, I'm dead. And so there goes that life. And then you get hurled into the next. So speaking of that, your grandmother, like what was it that you felt was the most valuable that you learned from her, aside from what she told you is why you were born, your mission in life?
I think it's a lot of things that I didn't see play out until later on. But, you know, I was raised with her telling me to look for the fairies, you know, just these goofy little things, you know, that they're there if you look for them, which like now to me, I would see that as like a dragonfly or a butterfly, you know. Like I have a specific butterfly that finds me every time I go out to this trail behind my apartment.
I believe
and it's really neat because he also shows up when I call upon him, like I'm speaking about him. I'll take my friends on a walk and I'll talk about this butterfly, and then he'll come and sit on the ground right in front of us, and I'll be like, I guess he heard us. But I get to show my friends because I'm like, I bet you I sound crazy right now, and then he'll show up and literally sit on the ground right in front of us.
Oh my
it's really
goodness.
neat. My grandma, you know, raised my mom and me with like, you know, essential oils, homeopathy. She made her own body products. We learned how to make different little bath potions and soaps and lotions and how to make things. And so like now my grandmother isn't working, but she lives in a small town. She has chickens. She makes body products. She makes soaps, candles, and she sells them. And so, like, where does this idea of, again, earlier about the crafts, why do we have, like, retirement being the end of income? Why not work throughout your life to develop a craft and become really good at it? I know people who sell crystals that are wrapped in, like, extra intricate designs, and they sell them for hundreds of dollars. You know, if you get really good at something, people will pay for quality. We're starting to notice, like, I mean, even when I go to the store and I look at something and it's cute and I turn it around, I'm like, oh, it's from China. and you look at how cheap it looks, like it's just kind of goofy. Like, why not, find somebody who knows how to make it here where there's quality? Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just encourage everybody to start flipping over products and seeing where they're made at and whatnot, because we've also known China to put poisonous products in our chemicals. That's been uncovered multiple times. You can see news records of even Fox News admitting it.
And dog foods and all
kinds of things, But if you develop a craft, you don't necessarily have to retire, and we don't have to have this model of you work a job until you die, or until you retire, and then you just live off of what you saved until you die. Like, what happens after you quit doing your job? What is your purpose? What is your gift? What makes you happy? It's good for your emotions. That was always one thing I was really happy about developing, playing guitar. Anytime I was kind of in a emotional hurdle or felt really alone, I always had that to turn to.
Oh my goodness.
And I personally think it's really healthy for people to have an outlet like that. And also, a couple of times during the winter, whenever like my summer jobs, which pay really well, kind of die down, I've been able to sell a couple paintings or a couple of bracelets or a couple of necklaces. And there's one month where I made like $300 off of my crafts. So I highly encourage you guys during this time to just find something, get on Pinterest, get inspired, and just start doing something. Every time you go back to it, you will be better than the time you were before. Make failure your friend. That is how you get good at things.
That's a great t-shirt. And so is support your local fairies.
And I highly think that like the ideas that we have around failure are like ill-conceived.
So true.
I do a lot of Melody knows I do like fire spinning. And my first kind of intro into that was I was watching fire spinners, and I was sitting at a table with this glass blower. And I was just like,
I love glass blowing.
They're so good.
Oh my
So
goodness.
good.
It's gorgeous.
It's neat.
Yes.
And so this guy, sitting there with me, and I just sigh, and I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. And he said, why can't you? I was like, well, I could never do that. And so right there, I cursed myself, and I gave myself a definitive reality where I could never do that because I told myself I couldn't. And he said, do you not think like that they've not hit themselves a million times? I watch these guys try and practice their moves. They drop their prop, they hit themselves, they're all bruised up. And I was like, oh shit. So it's how bad I want it. And that's the case for everybody. If you pick it back up and you keep trying, was it really a failure, or did you learn something? And so that's the other thing. If you win at a game or something, you take away the little pride that you have, and that's great. But if you lose, you've gained information that you can't put a price on, because now you know how to not do something, and you've learned something. So you've walked away from this with kind of like a +1. You have something to hold now internally. And is that failure? Like, I don't believe it is.
No.
If you've learned something from it, I don't believe that failure is this negative loss that we preconceptualize it to be.
I want you to run for president, if that's okay. Maybe that's the painful part, because nobody wants that stinking job.
Right?
But you're like Gaia on a podium.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness. That is incredible insight, Adrianna. Did I ever show you my guitar string?
No, I didn't realize
bracelet?
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's precious.
Yeah.
I like these little things that hold it together.
I know. I'm not really sure what they mean, but look at it sparkle.
That's really neat.
There was someone, my son dated a precious girl whose mother is a musician, and she made it. We're going to go to another little spot here, but my God, Adrianna. So I'm not really sure. I have one more question for you. We're going to switch sides, and then I want to ask you a final question.
Okay.
So you seriously are so insightful. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
You're so insightful. If I had a smidgen of the intuitive awareness as you when I was your age, I just might be ruler of the world. I'm not even kidding. God, what do I want to ask you? So, do you believe in spiritual warfare?
Okay, here's a neat thing. So I've been reading this book called When Plants Dream, and I went to a comedy show / science talk where there's this beautiful woman. Her name's Sophia Rockland. Highly recommend the book.
Okay.
And she lives with the Shipibo-Canibo tribe. And so, like...
Where are those people?
They're in Peru, and they're highly known for their mastery over ayahuasca.
Oh.
And so some of her work has been bringing to knowledge, because now there's like a psychedelic renaissance, and people can do ayahuasca anywhere. And they are, and there's a lot of pseudo shamans going on. And one of the things that really caught me off guard about that book is she talks about how often ayahuasca was used for magic, and not always in a good sense, but it was used, the different tribes would use it to gain insight on other tribes.
Sure.
And so now, like, a lot of people traditionally do it in group settings, but back in the day, if you were to do it in a group setting, it would typically cause like some sort of dispute, and then they would start casting spells on each other. And so I found that to be really intriguing, to find this American New Yorker talking about magic in this very, what's the word? This very, like, sedentary, like, it was very, this is just factual aspect of their culture. And that this has been going on for longer than America's been around as we know it, North America. And these tribes have been using this medicine for powers and magical warfare. And so, I mean, she also talks about how this is something that a lot of different cultures around the world acknowledge. We are just late to the game on acknowledging that spiritual warfare is a thing, because many other countries acknowledge witchcraft, and that's what she calls it, is witchcraft. And the tribes acknowledge it as witchcraft. They acknowledge that psychedelic state as a place where powers are enhanced. And so, I mean, I definitely...
And they're portals. You have to be so very careful. So that's fascinating, and I will look into that book. Have you done it? Have you done ayahuasca? I will not. I will not. No, I'm afraid.
I haven't done ayahuasca. I've done DMT a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had a couple of ventures. A lot for the past 5 years. I've been venturing into those realms. Yeah, it's where a lot of my work's been done, with myself, where I get a lot of my insight.
Wow. I
typically go inward and try and heal, like, ancestral trauma. It's really helped me repair my relationship with my father, who is the Roman Catholic. It's taught me how to speak his language and bridge that gap, because there was years where we didn't speak.
Wow.
And so I was able to... There was a couple of experiences where, you know, I was sitting there and I'm like, I wish that me and my dad talked. You know, I just wish we talked. And, you know, my husband was sitting with me, and he was like, well, why don't you? I was like, because it just doesn't work that way. He's like, I bet you if you just texted your dad and said, I love you, that he'd respond. And it was like that moment when I realized, like, I can take that step. I can bridge that healing. If I just offer him love, he's not going to deny it. And if I just, like, wake him up and let him know that we have differences, but one day I'm going to die and you will too. And you're really going to regret it if we didn't talk. And I will too. And so I just kind of, you know, worked on that and started healing that for myself. And me and my father talk a lot now. And he and I don't see eye to eye. He really hates my Buddha tattoo.
Let's see it.
Yeah.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah. So, I mean, but, like, it's fine. It doesn't matter. Like, he doesn't say anything to me anymore, because he understands that we are more alike than we are different. And
Buddha knew that.
Yeah.
What about your lotus? Is that a lotus?
That's my little lotus.
I love lotuses.
Yeah.
Do you identify with the lotus?
I
Coming up from the
say,
mud.
Yeah, that was the big thing, was the no mud, no lotus. And that's what a lot of my, like, plant medicine journeys have taught me. You know, some people have I don't think there's a such thing as a bad trip, because I go into it for the bad. You know, you get to learn something about yourself that you don't typically see. You get to see yourself from outside and from behind, and really question, why do I do these things? You know, what am I...
All the muckety muck inside.
what am I trying to do? You know, a lot of people, you know, me too, do things because we feel validated. And a lot of them are these like just mechanistic things we've been taught socially to do, and don't question why it is that we do them. And so it's really allowed me to have insight into like my inherent value and where I can validate myself, and the fact that I'm just valid for existing. That's all you need, really. You know.
That's amazing, Adrianna. We have a cyclist coming, so we're going to step aside.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Have a great day.
Thank you.
But yeah, so I mean, I've not done ayahuasca. That will be a venture I take later on in life, probably. We'll see how it goes. But eventually, I'd like to live in Peru. I want to...
Oh, I see that. I
So,
see that for
one
you.
of my goals is I want to go to school here and get kind of a bachelor's in STEM. And I don't know if you know who the McKennas are, but Dennis McKenna opened up a psychedelic school in Peru where they study psychedelics as science. He's an ethnobotanist. He was Terrence McKenna's brother.
Okay.
And so, yeah, he opened up a school down there. So I definitely eventually want to be working with shamans. And if you talk to the shamans and ask them how they do healing, because supposedly disease is like the result of an inherent trauma that happens at a genetic level, and sometimes trauma is ancestral. And I encourage you to watch TED Talks on some Americans talking about hypnotism healing them whenever 10 years of specialists couldn't. It's very interesting.
Yes.
You can see Americans who are educated tell you how hypnotism healed them whenever, you know, all the specialists in the world couldn't. You know, I read a book by Jeremy Narby called The Cosmic Serpent, talking about how kind of like inherent knowledge existed with these tribes. You'll see like little cave drawings of like mitochondria, and how the double serpent was the origin of the universe, which is the double helix.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and so it's often a rainbow colored double serpent that stretched from the earth all the way to the heavens. And if you know anything about DNA, it could reach from here to the moon
And it
back
looks
multiple times.
serpent-like, doesn't it?
Exactly.
The strands. Ooh, this is
So-
good stuff.
Yeah, and so
Healing
I mean,
stuff.
Even apes knew inherently where they came from, which is your DNA, your programming. But people like to take things literally here. Aristotle had a lot to do with that, so everything's very literal. But a lot of shamans believe language is like double-sided, so things are parallel. And so, you know, what the tribe that Narby was working with, the shaman explained to him that you bring your consciousness down to a really small size, and you go inside the DNA and find where the trauma occurred, and you do healing on that. And so now here we are in America, where we're finding that most diseases epigenetic, you know, or genetic. And so we are working on epigenetics to heal disease through the DNA, which shamans have been doing for centuries.
Forever.
So it's almost like we're just doing the same thing in an official manner. So I want to get my little American scholastic degree and then go down and prove how they're doing the same thing we are doing here.
Girl, you
That's my goal. We'll
are
see if it happens.
already qualified to heal the earth. I am just not even kidding. And I love that answer. Is that not awakened? You were a shaman. You are a shaman. And a beautiful, majestical fairy with a heart of gold. Let's come this way. So we're going to wrap it up here. But yeah, really quickly, I learned about some other modalities as well. EFT. EFT, what is it called? Emotional freedom technique, otherwise known as tapping. Have you heard of that? On the meridians of the body. Essentially, toward the end of my adventure in Los Angeles, I went to a session. I donated $20, sat in a circle, and you put your intention in the center. Mine was balanced because everything was just upending. And one session. It essentially helps unblock emotional trauma stored in the body, and instead of observing the problem and the trauma, you go right through it. Like you feel it, see it coming, you see it coming, and you go right through it. which is, I'm certain, the whole point of the ayahuasca and, you know, the DMT and all that. And you're releasing that trauma from your body. And I will also say that, and then past life regression therapy, that's another one of my favorites. And I mentioned in another one of my videos, I actually got to meet Dr. Brian Weiss, the author of Many Lives, Many Masters.
Okay.
Because I was a caregiver for his best friend and didn't even know it until they asked me one day, are you religious or spiritual? And I said, well, there was this book in the 90s. And they were like, oh my God, Brian and Carol are our best friends. And I was like, shut up. So everything is connected. There are no coincidences. But this is incredible. So here's my last question, because really I just wanted to let you flow like the creek. A call to action. This is my last question for you. If you have a call to action, you've mentioned so many things that are so important, but what would it be primarily? Like, what's your biggest wish in this incarnation? Because I feel like you have many.
For me?
Yes.
Let's see. I've been inspired by the amount of people that I see outside doing things that are human. And I really hope that I see that more often. You know, I've noticed people being kinder. And so, you know, a big one for me that it took me a while to understand is the map is not the territory. And if everybody could just really ponder on what that means. You know, we look at these abstractions and we pretend that they're reality. But if you don't experience it, if you go outside, you'll realize that the news on your phone is not what's outside. And so please do that more. Go outside more and experience reality in its tangible self for itself.
Yes.
And if everybody could do that together, that would be great, you know? It really would be.
I got a bug. You know what? I totally agree. Low five, high five.
There we go. We got it. There we go. We messed up.
So silly. Wow. You know what? So, and I listen to certain readers. I really like Water Baby Tarot. You know who she is? Rodin. Oh my God. Check her out. And she does collective readings, and she says, she points out a lot of what's happening. But one of the things that she mentioned was a lot of protests and a lot of really great things are going to be happening more around nature.
Right.
It's kind of what you just
And another
just
thing
said.
is I saw the other day, and this is just like something I found inspiring, was that the world is not getting worse, things are getting uncovered, and we should all hold each other tightly as we deal with that together. You know, it's important for that veil to be pulled back, and it will be uncomfortable, but just like a butterfly and a caterpillar in its cocoon, it's not comfortable. It's very uncomfortable for them for a very long period, but at the end of it, they get to fly. And that metaphor relates to us in so many ways. Just because something is scary or is different and it's not your repetitious pattern doesn't mean it's bad. Things are changing, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
I'm going to hold you gently because I'm so grateful. I am so grateful for you. Not the helicopter. You guys, we just went there in the most gorgeous way. Keep it down. This is the second interview I've had where a helicopter flies over.
Really?
Oh, that's like military too. Let's check it. Yeah. Well, that's not suspicious.
And also, if you get on YouTube, find your local environment and look up edible plants, just in case you ever need that. Not trying to scare anybody, but even just here, like I walk all the time, and I finally looked up a video of a forager, and I recognized a lot of the plants, a lot of the different things that are edible. It's interesting to me how a lot of the things that don't look edible are, and the things that look edible aren't. Definitely don't eat anything if you don't know what it is, but like, yeah, you know, get yourself knowledgeable about your terrain, where you live, talk to your neighbors, you know, go outside and get your vitamin D and look up immunity and how to get your body doing what it needs to do. And fear does more damage to your homeostasis in your body than anything does. So just try not to be afraid, you know.
Amen. And so it is. And they all lived happily ever after. This is Adrianna, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. You are amazing.
So are you.
Thank you. I already knew this about you, though, but I literally, the entire time, have been getting chills in a good way. So we'll see you next time with
you
another
next time.
awakened soul as we go there. Let's take one last look at the glorious side of Gaia.